Most people live their entire lives begging for scraps of validation from a world that will never. They smile when they don't mean it. They laugh at jokes that aren't funny. They contort themselves into shapes designed to please strangers who wouldn't notice if they... And they call this politeness. They call this being a good person. What they refuse to call it is what it actually is. Submission dressed in the costume of virtue. You are taught that niceness opens doors, that agreeableness creates opportunity, that the world rewards those who play by the rules of social harmony. But look around you. The nice finish last not because the world is unfair. It is the survival strategy of prey animals. And if you continue to operate from that framework, this video is not about making friends. It is not about being likable. It is about constructing a presence so solid, so undeniable. It is about trading the desperate need to be loved for something infinitely more valuable. What you are about to learn comes from Machiavelli's deepest understanding of human nature. I will show you how to kill the part of yourself that seeks approval, how to weaponize silence and stillness, how to move through the world like someone who doesn't need it to validate their existence, and most dangerously, how to become comfortable being the villain in someone else's story, because by the end of this, you will understand that confidence is not a feeling. It is a structure. And terror is simply what weak people feel when they encounter a structure they cannot manipulate. Let's begin with the most important execution you will ever perform. Understand this first. Niceness and civility are not the same thing, though you have been taught to treat them as synonyms. Civility is a conscious choice made from a position of power. It is the decision to treat others with a baseline level of respect because you have standards for. Niceness, on the other hand, is reflexive. It is the flinch response of someone who fears consequences. When you are nice, you are negotiating. You are offering your agreeableness as currency in exchange for not being attacked. This reflex was installed in you early. As a child, you learned that compliance earned safety, that pleasing authority figures kept you out of trouble, that making yourself small and inoffensive was the path to being included. These lessons hardened into patterns. Now, as an adult, you smile at people you don't like. You agree with opinions you find repulsive. You laugh at jokes that insult your intelligence, and you tell yourself this is kindness when it is actually cowardice with better branding. The person who is reflexively nice is advertising their submission. They are telegraphing that they can be controlled through the simple mechanism of social pressure. Every time you smile by default, every time you rush to fill silence with agreeableness, and harmless people do not get respect, they get used. Here is what you do instead. You adopt a neutral expression as your default state, not hostile, not warm, neutral. Your face becomes a blank canvas that reveals nothing until you consciously decide to reveal it. This creates something the nice guy can never access: unpredictability. When people cannot read your immediate emotional response, they become uncertain. And uncertainty is the mother of respect. Stop smiling unless something genuinely amuses you. Stop nodding along unless you genuinely agree. Stop offering verbal confirmations like, yeah, totally unright, just to smooth the social. Let there be friction. Let there be the momentary discomfort of your non-responsiveness. What you will discover is that people begin to work harder around you. They become more careful with their words. They second-guess their assumptions. They treat your attention as something valuable because you have stopped giving it away for free. Civility, by contrast, costs you nothing because it comes from abundance. You can afford to be polite because you are not afraid of conflict. You can afford to be respectful because disrespect wouldn't threaten your sense of self. You hold doors, you say please and thank you. You acknowledge people not because you need social. This is the difference. The nice guy needs the interaction to go well. The civil man operates according to principle, whether the interaction goes well or not. When you stop being nice and start being civil, something strange happens. People become nervous around you. They cannot predict your reactions. They cannot manipulate you with the usual social cues. And in that nervousness, you gain leverage you never had when you were trying to make everyone. Now we go deeper, into the weapon that most people fear so much. They fill every moment with noise to avoid it. Silence. There is a reason people are terrified of silence. It forces presence. It removes the buffer of distraction. It creates a vacuum that demands to be filled, and whoever fills it first loses the frame. You have been trained to fear this vacuum, to rush into it with words, explanations, justifications, anything to make the discomfort stop. But the moment you understand silence as a tool rather than a threat, here is the technique. When someone asks you a question, pause for 3 full seconds before answering. Not 2, 3. Count them internally if you have to. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. Then respond. Do you understand what happens in those 3 seconds? The other person's nervous system begins to activate. They start to wonder if they offended you, if they asked the wrong question, if you are judging them. Their discomfort rises, and with it, their perception of your status. Because only someone important, only someone with options can afford to be silent. This is not a parlor trick. This is the recalibration of conversational power. Most people speak immediately because they are afraid silence signals ignorance or uncertainty. But instant responses signal something worse, that you are so eager to please. A 3-second pause signals the opposite. It says your thoughts have weight, that you are considering your words because they matter, that you do not need to perform reactivity to prove your value. Apply this everywhere. In job interviews, in negotiations, in dates, in confrontations. Someone criticizes you? 3 seconds. Someone asks for your time? 3 seconds. Someone tries to rush you into a decision? 3 seconds. You will be stunned at how often those 3 seconds cause the other person to backtrack. They are responding to the authority of your stillness. Next, the speed of your speech. Listen to people who are anxious, people who feel inferior, people who are lying. They speak quickly. Words tumble out in a rush because they are afraid that if they slow down, they will lose the floor. They will be interrupted. They will be dismissed. So they compensate with velocity, cramming as much content as possible into the shortest span of. You must do the opposite. Speak slowly, articulate clearly, finish your sentences. Allow space between your thoughts. When you speak as if you have all the time in the world, slow speech is the speech of kings, of judges, of people who do not doubt their right to occupy the I. This does not mean you become robotic or monotone. Variation in pitch and emphasis is still useful, but the underlying tempo should be deliberate. Each word should land with intention. When you master this, you will notice that people lean in when you talk. They stop multitasking. They give you their full attention because the rhythm of your speech has commanded it. And then there is the matter of interruption. You are in the middle of a sentence and someone cuts you off. The reflexive response is to raise your voice, to talk over them, to fight for the floor. Do not do this. The moment you compete, you have already lost. Instead, stop talking immediately. Go completely silent. Maintain eye contact with the interrupter. Do not look away, do not grimace. Just hold the gaze in neutral silence. What happens next is almost mechanical. The interrupter becomes aware of what they have done. The social violation becomes visible. They trail off. They apologize or they simply stop. And then, only then, do you continue exactly where you left off as if the interruption never. This technique works because it inverts the power dynamic. The person who fights for the floor is admitting they might lose it. The person who simply stops and waits is demonstrating that the floor belongs to them by right. Never fight for what is already yours. Silence, slowness, and stillness are not passive behaviors. They are active assertions of dominance that require no aggression and leave no opening for. Master them, and you master the rhythm of every room you enter. Let's talk about the golden calf, the false idol that most people worship without ever naming it. External validation. You have been conditioned to care what other people think. Not just in the abstract, but viscerally, metabolically, as if your survival depends on it. A compliment raises your mood. An insult ruins your day. A lack of response to your message sends you into a spiral of self-doubt. You are running a program that makes your emotional state completely dependent on the reactions of E. The goal is not to pretend you don't care. The goal is to actually reach a state where external opinions carry no weight, where a compliment and an insult land with the same emotional impact, which is to say, none. This is what I call emotional zero, not numbness, not bitterness, zero. The point on the graph where the line does not move regardless of input. How do you reach this state? By recognizing the game for what it is. Every social interaction contains an implicit barter system. I validate you, you validate me. I laugh at your joke, you laugh at mine. I acknowledge your worth, you acknowledge mine. This system works fine for people who need it. But the moment you opt out, the moment you stop offering validation and stop seeking it, here is what opting out looks like. Someone compliments you. Instead of lighting up, instead of reciprocating, instead of inflating with pride. Flat, factual. The compliment has been received and filed away as information, nothing more. Do you see what this does? It removes the transaction. The person gave you validation and got nothing in return. This is destabilizing. It makes them wonder if their validation matters. And in wondering, they begin to work harder to earn a reaction from you. The same applies to insults. Someone tries to provoke you, to get under your skin, to make you defensive. The reflexive response is to justify yourself, to argue, to prove them wrong. Do not do this. Instead, respond with boredom. Okay, if you say so. Interesting perspective. Deliver it with the energy of someone who has. The insult has landed but produced no damage, no emotional yield. The person who insulted you is now holding a weapon that failed to fire. They will either escalate, which reveals their desperation, or they will retreat. This is not about being cold. This is about being untouchable. When you no longer need external validation, you stop being controlled by those who would offer it. You become a closed system, self-sustaining, and people feel this. They feel that you are not playing the same game they are. There is a technique that makes this visible. I call it the bored stare. When someone is trying to impress you, trying to get a reaction, not hostile, not dismissive, just profoundly uninterested. Hold that expression for as long as it takes for them to run out of steam. Then when they are finished, respond with minimal effort. This communicates that their entire performance was noted and found lacking in value. You will be surprised how many people interpret this as confidence. How many people assume you must be important if you are this difficult to impress. And they are right, you are important. Not because the world has validated you, but because you have stopped asking the world for. Now we turn to the body. Because all the mental discipline in the world means nothing if your physiology is betraying you. There is a posture that predators adopt and a posture that prey adopt. Prey makes itself small. It minimizes its profile. It protects its vital organs. It scans the environment constantly, looking for threats. Predators do the opposite. They expand. They take up space. They expose their chest and throat because they are not afraid of being struck. They focus their gaze on specific targets rather than scanning nervously. This is not metaphor. This is biology. And your body is either signaling dominance or submission in every moment. Stand with your shoulders back and your chest open. Let your arms hang naturally at your sides or rest visibly, not crossed in front of you. Crossing your arms is a defensive posture. It says you are protecting yourself. Open posture says you have nothing to protect because you are not under threat. Take up space. If you are sitting, spread out. Use the armrests. Let your presence fill the area you occupy. Do not compress yourself to make room for others, unless there is a functional reason to do so. When you walk, walk with purpose. Decide where you're going and move toward it in a straight line. Do not weave. Do not sidestep preemptively. Walk as if the path will clear because you are on it, and you will find that it does. People unconsciously move out of the way for someone who is moving with momentum and intention. They do not move for someone who is tentative and apologetic. This is not about being rude. This is about physics. A body in motion with clear intent creates a force that others instinctively accommodate. Your gaze is the next piece. Predators have a focused gaze. They lock onto what they are looking at and hold it. Prey scans. Darting eyes, quick glances, constant surveillance of the periphery. If you want to be perceived as powerful, you must train your eyes to move slowly and lock. When you look at someone, look at them. Not past them, not around them, at them. Hold eye contact until they break it. Do not stare them down aggressively. Simply maintain a calm, neutral gaze that says you are fully present and unbothered by the intensity. When you enter a room, do not scan it like you are looking for approval or checking for threats. Instead, pause. Let your eyes settle on one point. Take in the room slowly. Then move with purpose toward your destination. This creates the impression of someone who is oriented by internal navigation rather than external. It makes you look like you belong anywhere you choose to be. This is not arrogance. Arrogance is the overcompensation of insecurity. This is calm self-possession. The difference is that arrogance needs to be seen, needs to be validated. Self-possession simply is. It exists independent of observation. And that independence is what people find both magnetic and terrifying. Your body is the hardware. Your posture, your gaze, your movement, these are the operating system. If the operating system is running praise software, no amount of verbal confidence will override it. People read your body before they hear your words. Make sure your body is telling the story you want told. Let's address scarcity, one of the most counterintuitive principles of power. You have been taught that availability is a virtue. That being responsive, accessible, easy to reach makes you valuable. This is a lie. Availability does not create value. It destroys it. The economic principle of supply and demand applies to human attention just as it applies to when something is abundant, its price drops. When something is scarce, its price rises. You are either abundant or scarce, and if you are always available, you are worth nothing. Think about the people you find most compelling. Are they the ones who respond to your messages immediately, who are always free to meet, who drop everything when you call? No. The people you find compelling are the ones who are hard to reach, whose time feels valuable because it is limited, whose presence feels like a gift because it is rare. This is not an accident. This is the mechanics of perceived value. You must become scarce, not artificially, not as a manipulative tactic, but as a genuine consequence of having a life that fill your time with things that are important to you. Projects, training, study, creation. When someone reaches out, do not respond instantly. Let there be a delay, not because you are playing games, but because you were genuinely occupied with something that took. This communicates that your time has competing priorities. When you do show up, be fully present, but also know when to leave. This is the art of the exit. Most people overstay. They linger in conversations until the energy dies. They stay at parties until the end. They drag out interactions because they are afraid that leaving early will be seen as rude but staying too long is what actually kills interest. The best performances end while the audience still wants more. Leave conversations while they are still energized. Leave parties while they are still vibrant. Leave interactions with the other person wanting more of your company. This creates hunger. It makes people look forward to the next encounter. It elevates your presence from common to valuable. And then there is the matter of disclosure. You have been taught that openness creates connection, that sharing your struggles, your trauma, your vulnerabilities makes you relatable and trustworthy. There is some truth to this in intimate relationships, but as a general strategy, it is suicide. The more people know about you, the more predictable you become. The more predictable you are, the less interesting you are. And the less interesting you are, the less power you hold. Be selective with what you reveal. Do not overshare your plans. Do not broadcast your trauma. Do not explain your decisions in detail. Let there be gaps. Let there be mysteries. A man with secrets is a man with depth. A man who has told you everything is a man you can dismiss, because you have already mapped his. This does not mean you become dishonest or evasive. It means you understand that not every question deserves an answer. When someone asks you something personal, you can smile slightly and say, you are maintaining sovereignty over your own narrative. Scarcity, mystery, and selective disclosure are not manipulations, they are boundaries. They are the assertion that your time, your presence, they belong to you, and access to them is a privilege that must be earned. Now we arrive at the foundation that everything else rests on. Competence. Every technique I have given you so far is useless if you are incompetent. Silence without skill is just awkwardness. Scarcity without value is just absence. A neutral expression without substance is just a mask. Real confidence, the kind that actually terrifies people, is not built on performance. It is built on proof, on a stack of evidence that you can do what you claim to do, solve what needs to be solved. Competence is the only real confidence. Everything else is theater. And while theater has its uses, it collapses under pressure. But competence is the bedrock. The person who has solved the problem 100 times does not panic when it appears the 100th, and the surgeon does not sweat during the operation because the procedure is second nature. The expert does not need to convince you of their expertise because their results speak for them. This is where most people fail. They want the appearance of confidence without the work of competence. They want to be respected without being respectable. They want to be feared without being formidable. And so they play the role hoping no one calls their bluff, but someone always does. And when the bluff is called, the entire structure collapses. You must build the stack. You must become genuinely good at something. Not passable, not adequate, good. And then you must become better. Every skill you master, every problem you solve, every challenge you overcome adds a layer to the. And with each layer, your confidence becomes less of a performance and more of a fact. Here is what competence looks like in practice. When a problem arises, you do not react emotionally. You do not complain. You do not look for someone to blame. You assess the situation, identify the variables, and execute the solution. If you do not know the solution, you find it. You research, you test, you iterate. And you do this calmly because panic is the response of someone who does not trust their ability to, but you have handled it before. You have built the skill, so you handle it again. This calmness is what people find terrifying, because it signals that you operate at a level they do not, that you have access to resources, internal and external, that they lack. And they sense that if they challenge you, if they test you, you will not crumble. You will simply solve the problem of them with the same calm efficiency you solve every other. Competence also makes you independent. You do not need to rely on the advice of others because you have done the work yourself. You have read the books. You have run the experiments. You have failed and learned and adjusted. So when someone offers you an opinion, you can evaluate it against your own knowledge rather than. This independence is magnetic. People trust those who think for themselves because they know that trust is based on substance. But here is the trap. Competence without boundaries turns you into a tool. If you are the person who can solve every problem, people will bring you every problem. And if you solve them all, you will spend your life serving others' agendas instead of building your. So competence must be paired with selectivity. You must be willing to say no, to turn down requests, to refuse to fix what is not your responsibility to fix. This is not cruelty. This is respect for your own time and energy. The truly confident person is the one who knows they can solve the problem and chooses not to. That choice, that willingness to walk away from something you could do, because it is not something. So build the competence, stack the proof, become undeniable in your ability, and then wield that ability selectively, strategically in service of your own vision. That combination is what creates a presence that people cannot ignore and cannot control. Let me stop here for a moment and ask you something directly. If you have made it this far, you are not a casual observer. You are someone who senses that the world does not operate the way you were told. Someone who is tired of being overlooked, underestimated, or taken for granted. Someone who is ready to trade the comfort of being liked for the power of being respected. If that is you, I want you to do something. Go to the comments and write this sentence. I choose sovereignty over approval. Do not explain it. Do not add anything. Just write those 5 words. This is not for me, this is for you. Because the act of publicly declaring a shift in identity has psychological weight. It creates accountability. It makes the change real. And it aligns you with others who are walking the same path. And while you are there, click the like button. Subscribe to the channel. Not because I need your engagement, but because these are acts of intentional decision. You are not passively consuming content. You are actively choosing to align yourself with a framework that will change how you move through. Treat it with that level of seriousness. Good, let's continue. We have covered the foundational principles. How to kill the nice guy. How to weaponize silence. How to achieve emotional zero. How to move like a predator. How to create scarcity. How to build competence. These are the mechanics, but now we go deeper into the principles that separate those who understand power from those who wield it. What comes next is more subtle, more strategic, and more dangerous if you are not ready for it. The final principle is the willingness to be the villain. You have been taught that being a good person means being accommodating. That setting boundaries is selfish. That prioritizing your own needs over the needs of others makes you a bad person. This is one of the most effective control mechanisms ever installed in the human mind. Because as long as you believe this, you will sacrifice your time, your energy, your peace, and you will call it virtue. But here is the truth. The moment you start living according to your own standards, it is inevitable. Because people have built expectations around your compliance. They have come to rely on your availability. They have structured their comfort around your willingness to bend. And when you stop bending, when you start saying no, when you start prioritizing yourself, as selfishness, as cruelty, and you must be okay with this. You must be willing to wear the black hat. Not because you are actually cruel, but because the accusation of cruelty is the last weapon of, they cannot argue with your logic, so they attack your character. They cannot compete with your competence, so they question your morals. And if you flinch, if you backtrack, if you try to prove you are still a good person, you have given them the leverage they need to pull you back into compliance. Here is what you do instead. When someone accuses you of being selfish, Because you refuse their request, you agree. Yes, I am being selfish with my time. I have limited resources, and I choose to allocate them according to my priorities. When I hear that you are upset. I am not responsible for managing your feelings. When someone tries to guilt you into doing, I am not available for that. This is not cruelty, this is clarity. You are making it clear that you are not a resource to be exploited, that your time and energy belong to you, that you operate according to principles that may not align with their convenience. And yes, this will make you unpopular with certain people. Specifically, it will make you unpopular with people who benefited from your lack of boundaries. But those are precisely the people whose opinion should not matter to you. The people who respect you will not be offended by your boundaries. They will appreciate the clarity. They will understand that when you do say yes, it means something, because it was a genuine choice, and they will trust you more, not less, because they know you are not operating out of obligation or being willing to be the villain is not about being antagonistic. It is about accepting that you cannot control how others interpret your decisions. Some people will see your self-respect as arrogance, your boundaries as coldness, your priorities as selfishness. Let them. Their interpretation is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to live according to a code that serves your long-term well-being, and if that makes you a villain in their story, so be it. You are the hero of your own. And here is the paradox. The more willing you are to be disliked, the more people respect you. Because most people are so terrified of social rejection that they will do anything to avoid it. So when they encounter someone who is not afraid, someone who will hold their ground even if it, and power, even when it makes them uncomfortable, commands their respect. You do not owe the world explanations. You do not owe people access to your time, your energy, or your inner world. You do not owe them the performance of niceness. What you owe yourself is sovereignty, the right to govern your own life according to your own principles. And if exercising that right makes you the villain, then wear the black hat with pride, because the only people who will punish you for it are the people who wanted to control you in the eye. Let me bring this all together now. Confidence that terrifies is not built on bravado. It is not built on aggression. It is built on a series of deliberate decisions that fundamentally change how you relate to the E. You kill the reflexive niceness and replace it with disciplined civility. You weaponize silence and stillness to control the rhythm of interactions. You reach emotional zero, where external validation no longer moves you. You adopt the posture and gaze of someone who is not prey. You become scarce and selective with your presence. You build a foundation of real competence that makes your confidence unshakable. And you accept the willingness to be the villain, because you have chosen self-respect over social. Each of these principles reinforces the others. Silence is more powerful when backed by competence. Scarcity is more magnetic when combined with emotional zero. Boundaries are more credible when delivered from a body that signals dominance. They form a system, a structure. And that structure is what people feel when they are around you. They feel that you are not operating by the same rules they are, that you have opted out of the social barter system, that you are a closed-loop, self-sustaining, immune to the usual methods of control. And that is what terrifies them. Not that you are aggressive or hostile, but that you are unreachable, that their approval does not matter, that their disapproval does not matter, that you have built something inside yourself that does not need them. And in a world where most people are desperate for external validation, an outlier, a force that cannot be predicted or controlled, this is not a path for everyone. Most people will choose comfort over sovereignty. They will choose being liked over being respected. They will continue to smile when they do not mean it, and say yes when they mean no and wonder why. That is their choice. But if you are still here, if you have listened to this entire breakdown, you are someone who is willing to do the work, to make the changes, to become the person who walks into a room and shifts the gravity. So do it. Kill the nice guy. Master the silence. Reach emotional zero. Move like a predator. Become scarce. Build the competence. Accept the villain role. And watch what happens when you stop asking the world for permission and start taking what is yours. The world does not reward the meek. It rewards the formidable. And you are about to become formidable.